Hello game guys and game gals, welcome to another birthday video. I really didn't think that I'd be doing another birthday video this week, but here we are. A couple days ago we celebrated Quake's 20th birthday. I have a video for that in my Quake Grave series, so go check that out if you haven't watched it already. But today we're talking about two very prominent characters in the video game industry. And one, everybody already knows, is Mario. And the other, everybody already knows, is Sonic. So, what's going on with these guys? What exactly is happening? Well, Super Mario 64 is turning 20 this week. This game has been out for 20 years, and the original Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic's very first game, because with Mario, you know, there were a few games before this, like quite a few games before this. He had two system iterations of Mario games before this came out, but this is the very first Sonic game to be released 25 years ago. Isn't it weird that only 5 years later this was released, like the 3D version of Mario? So strange, so weird to think about, but it's almost a bigger celebration for Sonic because it's, you know, it's basically the day he was born. It's when he came out. And yeah, I just wanted to wish them a happy birthday and maybe tell a few stories that I have here about each game. Super Mario 64, you know, up until recently I still had the cardboard case and the manual for this game as well. Now, I ended up selling it. I'm going to have a video about that later, but I had a pristine box with the manual and everything. Sold it to somebody who wanted it. But I love this game so much that I held it. I wanted to keep that box in great condition because it helps me to remember all the great times I had with this game. Now, the version of the game that I had was the Player's Choice box because I did not buy the game immediately with my Nintendo 64. It was a game that I got, you know, relatively recently after I got my 64. However, I ended up buying it later because I played it so much with other friends. Now, I had a 64, and my other friends had PlayStation, so my friends would actually rent games for my system. Like, we would go to the video store, I would pick out one game, they would pick out like Mario 64 or something like that. We'd each pay separately, but we would all take the games back to my house and play them on my Nintendo 64, which worked out because we could spread the money out, we all got a chance to play the new games, and it worked out. This was one of those games. When I got a 64, I did not have this game with it, which is like sacrilege to some people, I'm sure. However, we rented it, and me and my friends like just busted through it, and I think eventually one of my friends ended up getting a 64 shortly after that, got this game, and all of us like continued our progress. Like, we just busted right through that game and collectively finished the game. I don't think we collected all the stars, but collectively, like, if there were parts where we were playing and we couldn't get through one area, we let one of the other friends go through it, which I think really worked out. And this game really holds in my memory because of that. And it's not just because of that, it's because this game was revolutionary. I mean, you had the first 3D first-person shooter come out that year with Quake, but this was really the first 3D platforming game that came out that was worth a damn, at least. And it's a really good game, and how you know that it was really good is that 20 years later it still holds up. A couple months ago I was just playing this game, and I was still enjoying it. It wasn't like, oh man, this is so rough or whatever. Like, some of the art is, yeah, because the N64 can only support resolution so high. But the game still plays great, feels great, and is a lot of fun to play. So, happy 20th to Super Mario 64. Definitely one of my favorite Nintendo 64 games, and possibly games of all time. Now, getting into Sonic the Hedgehog, the original Sonic the Hedgehog, who would have thought is now 25 years old? My god, I'm getting old. But, man, 25 years, I can't get over it. What a great game when this came out. Now, the Genesis was not a system that I owned right when it came out. In fact, hardly any systems until I got to the point where I could support myself did I actually buy them right when they came out. In fact, I can actually tell you there's only one system I bought when it was immediately available, and that was the Wii. I wasn't able to buy it in November when it was released because the Wii was so sought after. However, I bought it the following February because at the time my mom worked at a big retail chain, and she gave me a tip on like, hey, Wiis are going to be there that night. You know, you can go in line and get picked up. But regardless of all that, I digress. I got my Sega Genesis later, like a few years after it came out. I got it on my birthday, and I was told like, here's the Genesis, it's on sale. I think at the time it was like maybe like what, like $100 or something at the time. I really don't remember. But my dad said you can pick out the Genesis because it comes with 2 controllers. I think it was used. I don't remember. No, it was new because I still have the box for that too. But the games that I got were used, and I think it was at Kmart. So we got there, we got the Genesis. It was on sale. I believe my dad said you can get 1 extra controller so you can play with your sister, and you may pick 2 pre-owned games. And the 2 pre-owned games I picked were Dynamite Heady, and I picked Rocket Knight Adventures, and that's all I had. But from that moment on, as long as I had the system, my allowance went towards getting Sega Genesis games. And this was one of those games that I absolutely had to have once I had my Genesis finally. And I made good on that promise. I picked it up. I think that I got this with Sonic 2 because I think Sonic 2 was out by then. I bought them together. Sonic 2 ended up becoming my favorite, but this one I still played the hell out of. And when I bought it, it was at Funko Land. And at Funko Land, they would take all these boxes and they would just, line them up all along the shelves, and they would actually face them out like this. It wasn't like this where you'd see, the binding or whatever. You'd see the cover. So this is what you see when you walk in. You're like, oh man. And this was really cheap. I think I got it for $7, and I think it's because everybody's Genesis basically came with this except for mine. Mine came with columns. And I love columns, but it's not Sonic the Hedgehog. So I had to get this game. Now, the reason I wanted this game so badly is because I had a lot of friends who loved it, and I also had a friend of mine whose older brother showed me this game. We were at their house and we were playing NES games, and he told me, hey, my dad's got this really cool thing in his den, like, we should go check this out. And I'm like, what is it? He's like, it's a Sega Genesis. And I'm like, why isn't it out here? Why aren't we playing it? He says, it's expensive, and this is when it just came out. It's expensive, and he doesn't trust us with it. However, the dad kept it in the den, and the kid had a key to the den, so we could get to it. Now, it was really funny because he opened the door with the key, and when we got in there, the whole time I'm feeling guilty and looking around like, oh man, what's going to happen here? Is his dad going to storm in and see us playing his Genesis? But luckily, nothing happened. But the whole time I'm like looking around like, where is he? So we get into the game, and the first thing that really caught my eye was how beautiful this game looked. You gotta figure, at this point, I'm used to NES graphics. Now, NES has its own charm and everything, but compared to Genesis graphics, man, especially Sonic the Hedgehog, this game is beautiful. And they really went out of their way, Sonic Team did, to fully animate Sonic. Now, I bring that up because there's an embarrassing part of this story. While we're in the den, he's playing the game. I'm not allowed to play. I'm not allowed to even touch the controller. But he's playing the game and I'm watching. And Sonic hits a spring. And when Sonic hits a spring, everybody knows, he kind of tightens his arms back to his sides like this to be aerodynamic to go through the air quicker. It's a great animation they put in there. And I remember asking him, when you hit the spring, how do you make him tuck his arms down? And the kid was like, oh, he just does it. I'm like, what do you mean he just does it? I'm like, you don't have to hit a button or hold a button for him to do it? He goes, no, you hit a spring, he just does it. And he thought I was crazy for asking that, but I'm like, I'm used to Mario hitting a spring, and when he hits a spring, he just always is in this position. He's just always punching up, that's it. But Sonic, had a bunch of different animations. Even on the back of the box, they show, there's animation for him walking, animation for him slow running, animation for him fast running. There's the animations he would do when he was waiting for you to do something. There was the animation of him pushing a block, for instance. So he was a very animated character, and I was so blown away by that. I'm like, it's like playing a cartoon. It's so cool. So I have very, very good memories of this game. Regardless of what people say about the original Sonic or Sonic 2, I still love those games. So there you go, everybody. Happy birthday, Super Mario 64. And happy birthday, Sonic, in general. 2 great games, period. I mean, I can't say enough good things about this. Is it slightly painted with nostalgia? I'm sure it is. But, this is one game I'm never going to get rid of, and I love it. And I can say the same for Super Mario 64. This is one cartridge that will always be in my collection. I'll see you all next time.